Welcome back, guys. I have 2.5 stories for you today. 2 stories because I have one full story and another 1.5 because it's kind of a half story that veers off of a full story. So 2.5 stories for you today. The first story is about micro retirements. Micro retirements are the new trend. And what is a micro retirement? Well, it's where you leave your job for several months up to a year. And some of you know that this is nothing new, but let's get into this swimming pool on the shallow end. What are the pros to a micro retirement? Well, the first pro is that you get to travel while you're young and you can have more vigorous adventures. So you can climb Mount Everest when you're 21. You can't climb it when you're 65. You can climb Machu Picchu when you're 22, not when you're 73. You can just do more things. You can go to higher and deeper and farther places when you're younger and when you have the energy. So that's a pro to a micro retirement. And the point of this is that these adventures take a lot of time. They're very time intensive and labor intensive. So you can take time off while you're young to get these big adventures. Go to the South Pole on a big ship and go down there. That you probably won't want to do that when you're 67. That's something for for a 25-year-old to do. So that's one pro to a micro retirement. The second pro is that you get to refresh yourself more often. And who wouldn't like to do this? I mean, during the pandemic, when we were all sent home 2 weeks to flatten the curve, I was home for 3.5 months, 14 weeks, and I loved it. Yeah, I got to spend more time with my kids. We got to take up new hobbies. We learned how to bake, and that's just something that we never had time for when we were going to school and working and driving and commuting and everything. We just had time to do things that we'd never done before, things that take time to do. We had time to do. So just having time to do things and refresh yourself, that is an absolute pro for a micro retirement. That's a great argument to have a micro retirement. But what are the cons of a micro retirement? Well, number one is that re-entering the workforce can be very difficult for 3 reasons. A loss of skills can cause you to fall behind. And even if you do maintain your skills, the loss of continuity can reflect poorly on your resume. Employers may have a bias against you. You just never know really what people are thinking or feeling about someone who's just taken a year off from work just to travel, just because they can. People are envious, and they're not always the most genuine people, and they don't have the best motives. So don't hurt yourself. Don't put yourself at a disadvantage by doing something that other people might be envious of. It's like, being an employer and driving up to your McDonald's. If you're a franchisee, driving up in your G-Wagon or your Mercedes, when your employers can't even make ends meet. It's not a good look. So that's the second part of re-entering the workforce that can be difficult. Loss of seniority. If the company that you are trying to get a job with has a seniority basis for promotion and raises and pay scale and everything, you've hurt yourself by losing career momentum. You have to start at the bottom. Employers sometimes don't respect that you have experience. They don't care. They're going to start you out at the bottom. And what if you take your micro retirement at the wrong time, right? What if you like people who wanted to retire in 2008, right before the crash happened, they lost 50% of their 401k. Terrible timing, tragic. I felt terrible for them, but things happen. So what if you take your micro retirement, 2 weeks, a month before some kind of huge correction or economic disaster happens where there are layoffs. You can't time these things perfectly. So you don't want to hurt yourself by losing career momentum in case of some event that you could not foresee and had no control over. So just do yourself a favor. The second con is ageism. And this is a violation of federal law to discriminate against people because of their age, but it happens all the time, guys. You know it does. Employers can claim to reject you for a variety of reasons, even if the real reason is because they think you're too old for the role or the culture or whatever reason. They will come up with some reason not to hire you. Ageism is a huge issue. So really do yourself favors, don't hurt yourself. Just think about micro-retirement before you do it. And some companies already offer sabbatical leaves that are a break away from work, where employees can pursue interests they have or take time off for physical and mental health reasons. Unlike other leaves, sabbaticals are long leave periods from 6 months to a year, just like a micro-retirement. And companies whose employees have served them for more than 3 years often give employees a sabbatical leave to reward them for their loyalty and hard work. Another kind of extended leave of absence is called a furlough. But these are temporary, typically unpaid leave of absences or reductions in hours that allows a company to save money while keeping its employees. So the employees are still job attached while they're on a paid leave of absence, or their hours are reduced. And whereas furloughs generally imply necessity and scarcity for companies to do this, sabbaticals imply optionality and abundance. A sabbatical is a reward. And the only profession with a standard sabbatical these days is education. Teachers get sabbaticals every summer for 2 to 3 months, standard. And some companies that offer sabbaticals include Genentech. Full-time employees are eligible for 6 weeks paid off sabbatical after 6 years. PayPal employees are eligible for 4 weeks of paid sabbatical every 5 years. Charles Schwab employees can apply for a 28-day paid sabbatical every 5 years. Adobe employees qualify for 4 paid weeks at year 5, 5 weeks at year 10, and 6 weeks after 15 years of employment. And Skillshare employees who have been with the company for at least 3 years are eligible for paid sabbaticals. Also, David Weekley Homes employees earn their first sabbatical after 10 years of continuous employment and then can take time off every 8 years after that. It would probably be a more relaxed world if we all had the privilege of taking sabbaticals and in which colleagues never felt envious and resentful of other people's extra time off. Unless you're maintaining your skill set and relationships, micro-retirements could be very detrimental to your career. It would be better to negotiate a sabbatical with your new company at the time of hire. And just because the media or whoever comes up with a new catchword or something authentically good that's existed forever, it doesn't mean that it's good for you right now. And on to the second story. September home sales dropped to their lowest levels since 2010. Lower mortgage rates and rising inventories failed to entice buyers, especially first-time buyers. As of mid-2023, there's a housing shortage of 4 million homes, according to the National Association of Realtors. Construction of new homes has been slow in recent years, and more home buyers are competing for available homes, pushing up prices. But this is only one reason for elevated home prices if you have been watching any of my previous videos. According to DemandSage.com, in 2024, there were 8 million active Airbnb listings worldwide. In the United States, had 2,249,434 listings. That is 2.25 million families that have to live in motels because the single-family homes that are built specifically for long-term occupants like them are being used as hotels. I've upset some people with my opinion about houses being used as hotels instead of homes. A couple of commenters tried to defend their business model by saying that they can use it for anything they want. But that's not true. Can owners use their single-family suburban residence for farming, raising livestock, discharging firearms? Can they use their single-family suburban residence for refining oil, or making drugs, or storing nuclear waste? Some of these will seem hyperbolic, but they make the point that there are some activities that are unlawful because they are detrimental and even dangerous for other people in the immediate vicinity. Why do HOAs exist in the first place? To maintain the continuity of character, appearance, cleanliness, and peaceable living of the community. But even without HOAs, zoning regulations exist for the same reason. It's kind of why hotels and motels are only allowed to be built in commercial zones. Technically, Airbnb is conducting business that is reserved for commercial zones. And for obvious reasons. People don't want to live next to a hotel, nor do they want to live next to an Airbnb. Here's a testimonial of one resident who lives next to one, and this testimonial is from inews.co.uk. Referring to the house next door, since the house was sold, our dream has turned into a nightmare. The new owners bought it as an investment, but rather than rent it out to one of the many families in need of a home in this area, they have chosen to turn it into a full-time Airbnb. Now, from March to October every year, there are large groups of strangers arriving every week. They bring 3 or 4 cars, making it impossible to park on our street. Several times I have come back late from work and had to park a considerable distance from my house, walking home alone in the dark. They have noisy parties late into the night, keeping my children awake and shredding my nervous system. They sit smoking, drinking, and swearing in the small garden, with the smoke and language wafting over to my own small garden while my children try to play. They stand in large numbers, blocking the pavement and refusing to let people through. Supposedly Airbnb has rules against bad behavior, but how do you enforce them? By the time the bad behavior has been done, it's too late, and the peace and tranquility of the neighborhood has been violated by transients who couldn't care less. Regulations will always only be half measures. Neighborhoods need legislation to ensure that hotels can't crop up 6 feet away from your property line on a suburban street. And 2.25 million buyers need legislation to prevent egregious spikes caused by housing depletion as a result of short-term rentals. If this legislation was already in place, we would have 2.25 million more housing units, either for rent or for sale, for families. So to summarize my response to these critics, no, you are not allowed to do whatever you want with your own property. You have to consider the residential setting and zoning regulations. I'll end this video with responses to some other comments. Patty Oak 1 said, I never understood why people don't just want to stay in a hotel. And my response is that it's human nature to want to try the shiny new thing and see if it's better, like micro retirements. And even if it does feel better for the person using the product or service, that doesn't necessarily mean that another person isn't harmed by it. But Patty Oak 1, I agree with your sentiment. The second one is Philippines Bound 42, and they said, as with all rules, enforcement is the key. And my response is that enforcement for as long as STRs exist will be the key. It sounds like we're on the same page, Philippines, and have fun out there. And on that note, I'll end this video. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to like, subscribe, comment below, share this with someone else, and don't give up when you can get ahead.